Good evening, everyone, and welcome to yet another edition of Overdrive's digital show. And today there's a lot of excitement as well because we've got a special guest who's going to be talking to us and taking a few of your queries as well. Uh, Rajesh Jejurikar, who is the executive director at Mahindra and looks after the auto and farm sector, is also spearheading their EV initiatives that starts off its another big journey in this year. Now, there's been a lot of announcements in the recent past, especially about their last mile mobility solutions, as well as developing a new tech center that's going to be based out of Bangalore. And there's some very interesting work happening at their end. Now, since Auto Expo in 2020, where they did announce a few of those products coming into the market in the EV space, we're all very eager, I know, to see what they're up to. So I'm not going to waste too much time. I'm going to get Rajesh on to the show immediately. And there he is. Good evening, Rajesh, and thank you for being with us on the digital show, on this live digital show.
Pleasure. Thanks, Buddy, for having me, and pleasure to be with you, all of you.
So, Rajesh, how's your day? How's your days? How are these days working out for you? It's a very intense moment that we are going through. A very tough time for the auto sector as well as for people at large, for that matter. But how interesting are your days these days?
Yeah, first, Bertie, I think I have to tell everyone that first priority has to be the safety of all our people and all of you. Go out right now only if you need to, but if you can avoid it, please stay in, play, be safe, because we need to see this through. And if we see this through, then there's a lot of excitement. I think we are at that inflection point where we will see this through because the vaccinations will move into overdrive. If I may borrow uh, your caption, to take this through and end this part of our phase of our lives, which we never thought will happen. But while we're doing that, we still have to prepare ourselves for a robust future and a strong future. And we've been doing a lot of work over the last year to fortify our auto strategy and put in place all the building blocks for a strong tomorrow. Like you said, the electric is one important part of that, but our brand and strengthening our brand proposition, making our brands more SUV focused. So we are doing a lot of work in that space.
All right, super. Rajesh, thank you for that message also. And yes, we're all going to try and stay safe, keep ourselves socially distanced, wear masks, everybody out there, reduce your movements wherever you are, reduce your movements, don't head out unless it's absolutely essential. And let's try and weather this storm that's come our way. Let's get on the other side safer so that there's more excitement coming our way in the future as well. Rajesh, I'll just quickly get down to it because I know we're very short on time as well. Uh, I have a few questions for you, and in time we will take queries from the viewers as well. So do keep posting your queries on the chat boxes on YouTube, on Facebook, or on Twitter. My first question to you now, Rajesh, is over the last couple of years now, there've been various announcements coming from Mahindra towards electrification as the larger business plan. Shared mobility or personal mobility, electrification of existing portfolio, new platforms, a variety of business concepts have been bandied about. Now, which of these dynamics would benefit Mahindra as a brand in the long run? Because you're now at the helm of affairs. What are your thoughts? In which direction are your thoughts leading the group?
Yeah. But a great question, and the way I and our organization is now thinking about it is, if we really want to build a very strong, robust brand, we need to have focus and need to be highly differentiated. For us to have focus and be highly differentiated, we really need to go back and see the heritage of our brand and the stories that our brand has been telling, and the stories that are very salient to our brand narrative. And when we think about that, we really come around to saying that the real relevant story is about us being the authentic SUV player. And we really want to hence build our brand on the proposition of being authentic, helping consumers explore the impossible. Electrification in the personal space is a part of that narrative. So when we think about electrification, there is one part of our electrification which is related to personal mobility. That's going to be in the SUV space, our focus and priority. Electrifying, creating an electric range of SUVs for the future. Strategy is also about making choices, and we are making a conscious call to hence not play in the shared mobility space, except through last mile mobility, which is small three wheelers and small four wheelers. That's the commercial segment. But in the what we call passenger segment, we will play primarily for personal SUVs, have a range of IC derived electrics, and then born electric vehicles. So that's broadly the strategy. Electrification is a part of the brand building strategy, is not a standalone strategy by itself.
So electrification now, it's not a simple movement for a traditional OEM, because you've got several other responsibilities towards your existing customers. At the same time, you're talking about a cosmic shift, an inevitable cosmic shift in terms of the product lines from IC engines, which have been around for well over a century. Now completely, we're working towards dismantling that, making those redundant and replacing it with an electric motor. It's a very simple approach for modern players, contemporary players who just come into the market. Just to cite them, since it's for instance Tesla, who would had a fairly simpler journey because they've started off from scratch. You don't have to worry about legacy ownership and values that you would have to continue providing to IC engine owners for that matter. So how difficult, how easy is this transition for Mahindra as a company, or for any other manufacturer as well, from the whole IC engine phase to an electric phase?
Yeah. So Bertie, clearly as a established OEM today in the market, and like you rightly said, we have asset base around IC product lines. And neither is the market going to shift one day immediately from IC to electric, right? So it's going to be a phased approach, both from a legislation point of view, we believe, but also from a consumer migration point of view. So consumers will also move from IC products to electric over time, and there are going to be many determinants of that time. One determinant of that time is going to be the cost, right? So as the cost curves improve, the penetration for electric will improve. The second is availability of charging infrastructure. The third is my love for and caring for the planet. So when these three things start kicking in, it's at that stage that we will see a very rapid move to electric. But till then, electric will be an option, will not be mainstream. Now, it's anybody's guess whether that timeline is going to be a few years, sorry, which means 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. That's one has to wait and watch. Our sense is that a serious migration to electric will not start till the year 2025, 2026 in India. That migration for the personal segment. However, for the last mile mobility segment, we believe that time will be much, much faster, and which is the reason we've kind of segmented our business into two verticals. One which is
Yes.
going to focus on leveraging the short-term opportunity, which we believe is last mile mobility. And the second, as you rightly said, the EV tech center, which prepares us for the future.
All right. So, but we in the last few years, we've seen Mahindra bring out the E2O. You had the E Verito. You even created a splash at Formula E, and there's a lot of lessons that you definitely learned from there. You're at one point in time the favorites for leading India's EV charge, but there has been no news on the EV front from the brand for several years. This year again, or rather, I'd say 2020, information started coming in from Mahindra about your plans for the future as well. But um, neither is there a long range EV on the horizon. When and other players have come in, Tata Motors, MG, they've already come out with their products, they've already established, or rather at least started off establishing themselves as stronger players in the SUV space, in the EV SUV space. But what are the challenges for Mahindra? Why is it taking you guys so long to come out of this space?
Yeah. So, but to try and answer that in two parts. One is are continue to be the pioneers in the last mile mobility commercial space. That has been our focus, and for the reasons that I just mentioned, right? That market
Yes.
is ready, that segment is ready, and we should leverage that opportunity fully while that segment is ready. On the personal SUV space, we have two products in the pipeline which should come in, in the calendar year, next calendar year, which is 2022 or early
Which is the
23, which
EKUV
is
and
the EKUV
EHV.
and the EXUV 300.
Yes.
Now, but that's not going to be the end, right? And as we've said, we are going to invest now serious money, and we think this is the right time. Sometimes doing things too early is not necessarily the smartest thing to do, especially in an area where the technology curve is evolving so much. If you're going to launch a whole spectrum of EVs in a category and a segment where the market is not yet ready, then you really put in a lot of investment in a technology when the market is not fully ready. So it's not necessarily the smartest strategy to do. And hence, we are pacing ourselves to come out with the best possible portfolio of EVs at a time we believe the market will be more ready. And we think that's going to be 3, 4 years from now.
Okay. I'm going to take a few questions from viewers as well. We've got a few more minutes. One of the questions that came up earlier this week was why isn't India speeding up the EV ecosystem? A very important question because there is a lot of there's a lot of announcements, there's a lot of I would say optics about how the ecosystem has to be developed and how the government is doing various things, but it isn't really speeding up the way we want it to be. What are your thoughts on this, Rajesh?
Um, yeah, so clearly we need to move much faster on speeding up the electric ecosystem. And again, I think it will happen. And we have to, in a country like India, we have to assume that that will take some time. Uh, and which is why, at least our assessment right now is by the time infrastructure reaches a level where there will be serious penetration of personal segment vehicles, which allow you to move long distances, intercities, so on and so forth. Our sense is it's going to take about 3 years or maybe more. So that's the reason our product strategy is preparing ourselves for 3 to 5 years. Uh, because we believe that's when the penetration will start accelerating. And by then, we expect infrastructure will be much more ready.
Okay. Another question that we had was electric is the future. At the same time, for a country like us, petrol is one of the main sources of revenue. Uh, how can both of these be balanced out?
From a consumer point of view or from an economy point of view, I wasn't sure I got that question right.
I think let's look at from both sides because you see both sides of the coin as well.
Yeah. So, and which is I think in India for a while we're going to live with both options. We're going to live with gasoline as an option, and we're going to live with electric, and of course there are going to be hybrid solutions. So one has to be assume that for a long time we will have both. A lot, like I said earlier, is going to depend on how the cost curve on electric evolves, and how do the cost curves on the rest of the fuel types evolve as well. So I think one has to play this out with scenarios until a time when legislation will come in which completely stops fossil fuel vehicles. I personally don't think that's going to happen probably for the next 7 to 10 years at least. That a legislation which comes in which stops fossil fuels, right? So that means you are going to have consumers as the determinant of which they want to buy, and that's going to be dependent, like I said, on care for the planet. There'll be one segment
Yeah.
which is going to buy electric because they just care for the planet. There's going to be another segment which buys electric, but depending on the economic sense it makes. And if it doesn't make economic sense and I don't care for the planet, why am I going to buy it? So you are going to have this duality on for a while.
All right. The next question we've got is one of my favorites actually. Is Mahindra going to launch an electric tractor? You've done the
Yeah,
driverless stuff.
it's clearly something that we've been looking at, Bertie, and I'm glad somebody's brought up this question because normally, people don't ask in fora like this questions related to tractor. So the challenge in tractor, when you understand farming more closely, is that tractor is actually a prime mover for implements. components. And a tractor is doesn't do work by itself. It uses a cultivator, rotavator, so on and so forth as a, and hence becomes a prime mover for getting work done. So one of the very important requirements when you're doing that kind of a usage in applications, and in a country like India or many parts of the world, that is the primary application. You need a very high level of backup torque. And electric at this point of time, we're not seeing generating that kind of a backup torque, which allows a prime mover function where a machine or an implement or an attachment is able to work effectively with. There will be niche applications of electric tractors in very small horticulture farms where you don't need very high intensity work. But at this point of time, that's the reason it's not likely to be mainstream.
Uh, I'm going to take a couple more questions. One of them is Pininfarina helping MRV design some of the products in your pipeline?
Yeah, we have, as you know, Tech Mahindra and Mahindra invested in Pininfarina, but we do work with them as a design partner. Uh, all our new products have Pininfarina designs coming in, and Pininfarina does compete with our own design studios as well. So it's always a bouquet of options that we look at before making a final call on what to do.
So I'd assume this would also be involved a lot of the EVs that are coming in. There'd be a lot of work coming in from Pininfarina as well in this
That's
fact, because we've seen the Batista. When are you getting the Batista to India?
Wow. That will be interesting. Happy to take the first order. Just for
So
the
all you
viewers,
have to
just
do
for
out
your
there.
viewers to know it's priced at 2 million euros. So happy to
Well,
get
yes, I'm sure some of our viewers out there definitely have the capacity to do this. India is a strange country. We've got
yeah.
some really interesting, sales in the past, and hopefully, I'm hopeful something extraordinary will happen in the future as well. I'm going to take one more question, Rajesh, before I let you go for today. Uh, and that is Mahindra planning to launch a micro EV for the masses, like a two or a four-seater? There was some talk about a quadricycle, not just a three-wheeler,
Clear
but a
answer is
quadricycle.
oh, okay. Let me correct myself. We are planning to do this product project called Atom,
Yes,
which is a four-wheeler. We had showcased it at the Auto Expo last year, and that
yeah,
is a people mover product, last mile people movement, and we should launch that next year. This is not,
right.
as you know, in the COVID times, a great time to launch a people mover. I mean, this is really absolutely wrong timing, and possibly this year is going to go in recovering from COVID, especially in that segment where shared people mobility, as we all understand, is really under pressure. So,
Right.
but we do have plans to bring out the Atom.
Right, perfect. I'd love to have a long conversation with you, and we definitely line that up for sometime in the future. I do know you are tied up in meetings today, Rajesh. So thank you for being with us, answering some of those queries, and we will try and send you a few more questions. And when you do have the time and can respond to them, we will, respond to the viewers who are posting those queries. But thank you for your time today, and wish you all the best. Stay safe.
Thanks for having me over, Bertie. And I can see it looking at the number of questions on the screen coming up that clearly the 20 minutes we spent together has been woefully short. So would love to
Yes,
come back.
it's never enough. It's
Uh,
never enough. Another 45 minutes of this,
I
and
know.
it's a fun
Great to
session,
be
and
with you. Great
absolutely,
to be with you.
absolutely.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
See ya. Bye bye. Thanks, Rajesh. All right, guys, that was Rajesh Jejurikar. Time was short, unfortunately. He has to be in another meeting as well, but we're fortunate to have his time and for him to answer some of those queries for us. But moving on, we've now got, Rohit actually has got a story for you. He was in Uttarakhand. He got you the first walk around of the Triumph Trident, a motorcycle that I find quite intriguing, and that quite a few of my friends have asked me to get over so that they could also just check it out, see what it is. I'm looking forward to riding it, but here's Rohit's review of Triumph's new motorcycle, the Trident.
In the car world, a cheap car, a cheap premium car, cheap luxury cars even, will make all these car guys shy away because no one really wants to associate themselves with cheap cars or the word cheap. Bikers, however, don't have these kind of inhibitions. In fact, bikers won't have a problem with a cheap motorcycle as long as it promises to be a lot of fun, and that is exactly what this cheapest Triumph is all about. The Trident does have some retro cues to it in the round headlamp, the rounded tank, slim forks, and the edgy master cylinder. While the Trident does cast a silhouette of a sporty roadster like its counterpart from the 90s, it is tightly packaged and has a lean body structure that the Instagramming Gen Z are likely to appreciate. Now for someone like me who is an average 5'8", it fits quite nicely, and even for shorter riders it's not going to feel bulky or overwhelming. Its 805mm seat height is easy for most riders thanks to its narrow profile, while a fat cushioning and a wide pillion seat ensures that comfort over long distances for two isn't compromised. The handlebars are wider than a street triple to offer better leverage in the city environments, but an early steering lock limits its flexibility for navigating or turning in tight spaces. The handlebars are wider than the Street Triple, almost comparable to the Street Twin, but they are tilted towards the rider a little bit more. So with that, with the raised foot peg position, gives you a bit of a relaxed yet sporty riding posture, both that you can enjoy in the street, city, as well as winding roads like these. But to mark a clear distinction from the Street Fighter, the Trident goes with a single round headlight with horizontally split LED lamps that work pretty well for city use but not so much for highway. And then there is the matching single round instrumentation with horizontally split displays which are easy to read at all times of the day. The tail section looks the most modern. It has hints of the Street Triple and the Daytona in its pointy end, but the tail light looks a bit more sophisticated with the little Triumph logo embedded in it. It's touches like these in the tank, handlebars and headlights that take the attention away from some of the relatively cheap bits like the switchgear quality or the entry-spec suspension and brakes, and leave you with a feeling that the Trident is a sophisticated motorcycle, which it largely is. The overall fit and finish are hard to find faults with and generally feel better than the motorcycles that you are likely to be upgrading from. The chassis is suspended by 41mm non-adjustable upside-down forks up front and a preload adjustable monoshock at the rear. While I said that the suspension elements feature at the value end of the inventory list, they do their job pretty well. There is a nice damp feeling to it. Both the front and the rear feel harmonious, and it gives you a nice supple ride on most of the undulated surfaces that the Indian roads will throw at you. That said, there is a pronounced dive under heavy braking. There's also a bit of squatting when you give this bike some hard acceleration. And what that translates into is that if you were to carry your braking onto a speed breaker or into a pothole, the suspension will bottom out. In fact, in a similar scenario, you're also very likely to scrape the underbelly exhaust, especially on tall speed humps. In fact, the ground clearance will always become a matter of worry if you don't adjust the preload for the pillion and the luggage. The braking hardware comes from the Value Crate 2, featuring sliding type Nissan calipers at the front and the rear. On a cold start this morning, the brakes never felt worrisome. They feel nice in the city. The brake lever feel is also quite nice. It's progressive. And even a day-long ride in these mountain roads, they never really felt that they had some kind of a fade or that spongy or the wooden feel. All of that wasn't there, so no real room for complaint. However, if you were to take this motorcycle to the occasional track day, after a few hot laps, the brakes might feel inadequate. The engine won't disappoint no matter where you're riding, street, mountains or the track. This 660cc engine is derived from the Daytona, but apart from the platform design and engineering, it has little in common with the legendary 675. That said, most of the internals have been revised, reworked, completely new components. Cams, pins, the pistons, the heads, the intake, everything is new on this particular engine. But even on the move, the triple sounds just as enticing as you expect it to be. Take a listen. Compared to either of these siblings, it has a different intake system too to achieve that narrow seat and tank geometry. But the intake whine doesn't feel very different than its bolder siblings, and onlookers will hear the pleasant whistling sound of a triple. The powertrain also features a slip and assist clutch, which makes for a lighter clutch lever feel, and there's hardly any hopping under harsh downshifting. The gearbox feels a bit clunkier than my Daytona though, and I strongly recommend opting for the slick bidirectional quick shifter if you are into sport riding. This new engine also features ride-by-wire, which enables two riding modes, a dull rain and a peppy road mode, a first for this segment. Apart from the eagerness of the throttle, they also alter the alertness of the always-on ABS and the switchable traction control system. Now the road mode, it's nice and playful, just like the 81 horses that this engine churns out. And the gearing is short, and that gives you a nice quick acceleration, much quicker than what the specs otherwise suggest. Our tests in these hilly regions show a 0 to 100 time of 4.6 seconds, which is only about a second slower than our Street Triple R timings near the coast. Triumph also says that the Trident will ride past 200 km an hour if you so wish, though I believe it will take a while to get there. But the takeaway is that the Trident never really feels underpowered. Ride any of the older 600s on winding roads like these and you might agree that they can get intimidating at times because of the weight, because of the fueling, because of the way they accelerate. The Trident doesn't feel like any of that. The bike feels nice and light, the acceleration feels nice and smooth, the power delivery is linear, and the fueling feels spot on. The throttle isn't choppy, and maintaining a clean line through the corner is never too challenging because the power never feels overwhelming unless you're riding on a death wish. The power delivery is exceptionally smooth, and the meat of the power lies between the 3000 to 8000 RPM mark. But the short gearing and a healthy spread of torque between the 3 to 9000 RPM mark makes the Trident extremely forgiving to wrong gear selections. You can exit tight corners in 4th if you like, potter around town in 5th at 40 to 50 km an hour without any knocking from the engine, and even pull overtakes in 5th. The tractability is that good. Part of these handling niceties also come from the Michelin Pilot Road 5 tires, which have impressed us in the past on motorcycles of various shapes and sizes. They are known for their exceptionally good grip, and some Street Triple owners who are using these tell us that their tires have lasted over 10,000 kilometers. That said, you could run out of grip from this rubber at extreme leans. Also, on some of the stretches of the Dehradun roads, which have mixed shredded plastic with the bitumen for a new cost-effective model, these tires were losing grip quite abruptly. When the Triumph Street Twin came out, it left me impressed for many reasons. But at the same time, it did not evoke the kind of emotions that the original Bonneville did for me. Somewhere it felt a bit of a compromise in its size and its feel. But the Trident doesn't do any of that. It feels like it's cut from the same fabric as a Street Triple. It also feels like it's dyed in the same wool, has that same attitude towards fun. And that is what makes it so special. In fact, it doesn't feel like a compromise at all. More importantly, it doesn't feel like an entry-level model at all. There's a lot more character to it, and one that is very likable.
Well, there you had a very interesting story from Rohit. I'm going to get him on the show. He's unfortunately also suffering from a sore throat. So guys, don't bombard him with too many queries, because he's not in a position to answer all of them. I have no idea what he's been up to, but he's got a sore throat.
Well, just shooting a lot, Bert. Just testing too many vehicles in the heat and then also getting back into the AC. So, right. Yeah, not complaining about that, but yeah, that's been a bit of a...
Completely. I went out for a shoot yesterday. I came back with a splitting migraine, and I just had to knock myself out for like a couple of hours before I could surface and get back to normal. But yeah, it's terrible out there, guys. Everyone, all of our viewers, again, just keep in mind that we are not away from the threat of COVID. It's still bad. So mask up, sanitize, maintain your distance. We are effectively going to stop shooting. I'm not sure how we're going to get you content out next week on the digital show, or what we're going to be getting out for you, but we are effectively stopping our shoots as of today. We'll still try and give you some content next week, but let's see what we've got, what we can rustle up for you. In the meantime, there are a few queries I think that have come our way. Rohit, one of them, of course, is from Apurva Chetty, who's asking us, how is the quality of materials on the Trident 660? Any signs of cost cutting?
Well, Apur, like I mentioned in the review, in terms of the build, in terms of the fit and finish, it feels just like a Triumph. You go up to the higher Triumphs. I'm not even talking about the street wins. Even if you go higher up, something like a street triple, the quality is comparable. It's just that good. Each and every panel, it's put together very nicely. There are no inconsistent panel gaps here and there. The only bit of, cheap material that I could find, I'll not even say material, the only bit where I could see some cost cutting was if you look at the master cylinder for the front brake. It's that that old school typical matchbox kind of a master cylinder, something that we've seen on the Hero Honda Charisma, something like that. So that's the only bit that I would say is cost cutting. And of course, if you were to compare, the model of the brakes used or the models of the suspension used from Showa compared to what you've seen on the higher end Triumphs, of course, this is from the value crate. Like I said, this is on the more value end of things. But in terms of the performance of these brakes or suspension, it doesn't feel like a compromise anyway. In fact, the motorcycle doesn't feel like a compromise at all. In fact, if you were to, literally ride the older Street Triple and this new Trident back to back, you would feel a lot of resemblance between these two motorcycles in terms of how the engine feels, in terms of how the power delivery is. And then the Trident actually comes out a little bit on top because of the electronics that it brings along. That gives you a slightly better safety net as well. So it doesn't feel like a compromise anywhere, which is why I've said, even in the full version of the review, if you've watched it or read it, that instead of buying a pre-owned Street Triple for about 6.5 lakh rupees, I would say stretch and try and get yourself the Trident, because it's just a nicer package overall. And that's exactly how I would sum it. I mean, it's a brilliant starter big bike. If this is going to be your first big bike after riding the 200s, 250s, or 390s, you want to upgrade to something that is a bit more powerful, this is a very good step in that direction.
All right. We've got another. Apura's also asked another question. Tires losing grip abruptly could be because these are factory fresh tires. Possibly yes, because they were factory fresh in the car. The motorcycle just rolled off the factory
No, I
line.
wouldn't. I won't actually say that because these are factory fresh tires, because the first initial about 100 kilometers we were going easy, and when I said abruptly, it is that one particular section of the road, and this is something that I really want to research on. So even Bert might have some inputs here, because I came to know, I spoke to a few people there in Dehradun, and I came to know that that particular road, that piece of road that we were all complaining about, that road has been, I mean, the government there, the authorities there, they've been trying out a new kind of a mixture for the road. They're mixing plastic with the bitumen for these particular stretches of the road. It's a new cost-effective model, is what they say. And I don't know if something, is it's something got to do with that. But another interesting bit is because the loss of grip was so abrupt and so alarming in a way, because just before that we were shooting, and there were some stretches where we could almost get our knee downs easily, and these are public roads, so we would certainly not do that or advise anyone to do that. But that was the level of grip that these roads were offering. And just 20 kilometers later, suddenly a piece of road that looks so inviting and nice, you're losing grip very abruptly there. So I don't know if it's something to do with that new mixture that they're trying out. But one thing that I was very alarmed about was, just to take a look at the motorcycle and understand if everything was right with the motorcycle. I pulled over and everything seemed nice. And, I don't know what went in my mind, but I took off my glove, and I just tried to feel the road. And, at 2:30 in the afternoon, you are expecting the tarmac to be hot. I mean, it's so hot that you shouldn't be able to touch it. But these roads were not that hot. They were like barely warm, which is what was a little, alarming, because at 2:30 in the afternoon, the road can't be just barely warm, especially when you're sweating it out, So that was a bit alarming for us. And that is where the whole conversation started. Then I spoke to the other journalists who were with us on the ride, including some of the ex-Overdrive fellows like Abhay. And everyone had that same problem on that very stretch of road, that even on the straights, even if you would give a little bit of throttle, the tail would just, snap out. And that's with the traction control working. And mind you, Triumph has one of the most sensitive traction control systems, and still that was happening. So something was not wrong. Something was not right on that particular stretch of road. Something was definitely wrong. Visually, nothing that we could identify. So yeah, this is still a mystery for us.
You are talking a lot for having a sore throat, but let me just come back to you with some information also on this. Now, this is this program, of course, these roads where plastic, shredded plastic is being used. Now, there are several projects that are already being undertaken in India. In fact, there are some projects that one of the first earliest projects was, from what I understand, was in Chennai. And they're trying this out in Bombay and some other cities as well. But BRO, the Border Roads Organization, has been undertaking this project as well. They've been experimenting with this in some of the border states as well. So I think Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand are part of that, part of a few states where the BRO is constructing roads where the top layer is going to be used with along, or there's a blend of tarmac, bitumen, and shredded plastic. So this. It's quite possible that you are probably riding on one of those surfaces, Rohit. And I again not sure what the far-flung effects of this would be, but we'll know in some time just how effective. It's a low-cost project, but how effective is it towards safety? We're not sure at this point in time. So I'm sure it will come up in the months to come. All right, moving on. Got two more queries here, which I'm going to take, of course. Now, there's still several queries that are coming up that have come up on the EV sector. I'm not going to take all of those today. In fact, we are actually going to move across to the news, and we're going to wait for a few there as well. Yeah, let me get on to the news today, and we're going to start off, of course, with the 2021 Volkswagen Polo. If you can just pick up those images, we can have those visuals. There you go. That's the new Polo. Now, this has been showcased, and this is largely for Europe. An India spec version will also come down to India. This, however, is not going to be coming anytime soon. Volkswagen India's immediate plans are, of course, to establish that SUV line, which will be spearheaded by the Taygun and the Tiguan and the Tiguan Allspace, and of course the T-Roc. All of once those are established, and that project will go on till I guess mid 2022. At which time also there will be a little more focus on the next generation Vento, or rather the sedan. Let me not call it the Vento, but the next generation sedan, the notchback sedan that will come onto the market. Both Skoda and Volkswagen will be releasing it. But here are the first images of the Volkswagen Polo. Like I said, soon after all of that is done, including the new sedan, Volkswagen will definitely be looking at this. From what I understand from having conversations with Volkswagen, they are certainly looking at bringing the Polo back down to India. There will be a few revisions on this. We're expecting to see the 1-liter power trim come into effect again in this new Polo with the DHG transmissions, and there will be several variants as well. Looks nice, looks contemporary. You can see the same lines on this hatchback like you'd see in the new line of SUVs that they've come up with as well. Again, if you look clearly at the rear, where we just see in the Tiger, it's got that one sweeping line running across from tail lamp to tail lamp, which is an LED strip. In this, it's got the split strip. But all of it looks pretty interesting, looks pretty nice. So that's the Volkswagen Polo. You can also head down to the OVERDRIVE website. We've got a lot more information about the Polo for you. Coming up next, we've had the Shanghai Motor Show, the Shanghai Auto Show that is going on. That's still taking place right now in China. But there have been some big announcements and some big reveals coming up from there. I'm going to start off with I'm just going to talk about a few of them. First, of course, is the Toyota, the BZ4X, the EV concept. Now, this is a preview to the brand's first production battery electric car. Keep in mind, Toyota's larger agenda till now was a lot of focus on hybrids, but now this is one of the big push towards EV. That's what in the concepts in the BZ stands for Beyond Zero, or their electrification strategy, through which it will launch 15 pure electric vehicles. This will go across the world by 2025, which means India will also be somewhere in this plan. Maybe not by 2025, maybe a little later, but something or other will certainly come into India from this new strategy. Now, the BZ4X is being co-developed with Subaru, which is a big thing because Subaru is one of the masters where dynamics are concerned, making some of those most exciting, very, very exciting, very dynamic sports sedans. and it sits on a completely new eTNGA architecture. Now, this is Toyota's global architecture, again, which is a very modular platform that accommodates a host of cars or other top hats on it. And this has been, but this one has been, this eTNGA architecture has been specially developed for EVs. This SUV will come equipped with a new electric all-wheel drive system, which means it will have power delivered to all four wheels with individual motors running the front and the rear axles. This again will be developed in conjunction with Subaru. And what's impressive is that it will come with a solar recharging system that will work in union with the regeneration system to add to the SUV's range. The Toyota is one of Toyota's large areas of focus has always been to extend range to provide maximum range that they can. And both the solar charging along with the brake rejuvenation, all of this will kind of add to the range or other and reduce range anxiety for their consumers. Other big news coming up from the auto show is one of my favorites. Of course, this is the Audi A6 e-tron concept. What a gorgeous looking sedan. That car looks absolutely fantastic. Now, there are certain aspects of it that I think, resemble very closely the Jaguar I-Pace. If you look at the lower end of the car, the side profile, where you see that strip running across from the top, the length of the car, well, that looks a little Jaguarish, but on the whole, this is a stunning car. Absolutely gorgeous. I haven't seen an Audi in a very long time look this nice. I'm quite looking forward to this coming out in the market very, very soon. Keep in mind, there are lots of new innovative features again. One is the 800-volt electric architecture that's been co-developed by Audi and Porsche. It's called the Premium Platform Electric. Again, this will drive a range of cars in the Audi and the Porsche stables. The big highlights of this, of course, is that 700-kilometer plus range. And of course, the 0 to 100 time of under about, or rather around somewhere about 4 to 7 seconds. These are going to be some of the high points of this car. But the more important aspect is that Audi says that this car will be able to recharge itself to about close to about 80%, or rather give you a 50%, or give you a range of about 300 kilometers in just about 10 minutes. Now, this is something that's developing. There are more and more fast charging solutions coming up. There are several players around the world who are working on this and trying to make cars or rather enable empower them to charge much faster. This is what they're going to see. So this is the A6 e-tron concept. Again, one of the highlights was its very low 0.22 CD drag coefficient, which is marginally more aerodynamically efficient than the 0.23 CD of the Tesla Model 3, again, which is coming down to India. Now, in addition, at Shanghai Motor Show, we also had the Mercedes-Benz, the EQB and the C-Class long wheelbase. Now, close to the heels of the EQS, that's again another very, very interesting sedan that Mercedes-Benz recently unveiled. We've got the EQB. This is another compact SUV with an all-electric platform. Again, this is derived on the GLB SUV. Now, the EQB shares its underpinnings with the EQA platform, and it will come with numerous battery and output options globally, depending on the market and its requirements. This EV, again, will make its debut first in China in a 7-seater, guys, and then will be available in its EQB 350 4MATIC, guys, which uses a dual motor setup to make a combined 292 PS. Now, the European versions will debut later this year, and again, with a lot of choices in both power and output trims. One of those is going to be that 66.5 kilowatt hour battery pack, which will deliver about 272 PS of max power and give a range of about 470 to 480 kilometers, depending on that's according to the NEDC cycle. Now, again, both front and rear wheel drive options, or rather front and all wheel drive options, will be available. And the EQB can charge itself at 100 kilowatts and get from 10 to 80% charge in 30 minutes via fast charger. But again, like I mentioned earlier, as charging systems improve, this charging time will become shorter and shorter. Now, the GLB is not in the cards for India, so it's unlikely its electric version will make it to India. But again, we never know. Mercedes-Benz India has got a huge product portfolio lined up both this year and next year. There are about 15 products coming to India this year. Of course, the EQB may not be there this year, but of course, let's look forward to 2022. It perhaps could make an appearance here as well. Now, alongside the EQB, Mercedes-Benz also showcased the new generation, the long wheelbase version of the C-Class, and it's now gotten 89 longer. Wheelbase has grown 89 millimeters longer. While this long wheelbase variant is initially being showcased exclusively for the China market, it's quite possible that it will also make an appearance down in India, given that Mercedes-Benz, a lot of its products, they're now really pushing the space agenda, or the space as the next frontier for luxury in their cars, really pushing that agenda forward very strongly. So it's quite possible that we see the long wheelbase version of the C-Class coming down to India very soon. I'm going to take a few questions just now, and let me just quickly move over. Yeah, Sohini, have you picked out a few questions that we could? Will Volkswagen India? Nitin Joshua has got a question. Will Volkswagen India skip the current generation Polo altogether in India? Nitin, we're not entirely sure if Volkswagen will skip the current generation Polo altogether. Like I said, all of their plans for the Polo will only emanate for India, will only emanate post 2022, which is mid 2022. There will be nothing before that. So this current generation Polo that we're seeing just now, the new generation Polo that we're seeing just now, that will definitely make its way to India. In what shape, in what with what options, we're not clear at this point in time. But yes, it will come down to India. That Polo still continues to remain a strong product line for Volkswagen, and there's no doubt that it will continue to remain one of their biggest movers. So it will come down to India. Not this year, like I said, not mid of next year. Maybe sometime mid to late in 2022 is when they will explore that option. Right. A lot of the questions coming in today, which is great also in a way, because it gives us some time to look at the other aspects. Rohit, you want to take up the motorcycle news?
Yes, I can do that. In fact, producer, if we can have the visuals. And I believe Apurv asked, is Sohini okay? Yes, Sohini is absolutely fine. She is our producer for the day, because unfortunately our producer is showing a few symptoms of COVID-19. So we are hoping that he is fine. But yeah, Sohini is running the back end today. So Sohini, if we can have the visuals of the motorcycle news. So essentially, we know that Triumph has, updated its entire modern retro segment. It started off with the Street Twin. The Bonneville's got an update as well. And now even the Scrambler 900 has been given that update. So you get 3 new paint schemes. You get the updated engine, which is now BS6 Euro 5 compliant. There are a few changes here and there, in terms of the kind of bezels that it uses. So it's more to do with the color schemes, so to say, than outright performance. It's still essentially pushing out similar kind of power and torque. So in terms of rideability, I don't expect many changes there. But yeah, it has a few visual updates, which makes it look fresher. There are 3 new color schemes as well, and those color schemes really look good, especially the one that you see on the screen. I think it looks nice. It also gets this brushed aluminum finish on some of the parts, including this new number plate on the small panel that you have on the screen right now. On the left-hand side, you will get that panel. So it's very similar to what we've seen Ducati do with its Scrambler lineup, and essentially that's the target for this particular vehicle. It's going to go up against Ducati's Scrambler lineup, and I think it looks quite good and quite well poised to do that. There's also a Sandstorm edition, which is a limited edition, which gets you a different color scheme again. It also has that high riding mud flap. There's a headlamp grille. So again, visual changes here and there, but I think it looks very smart. It's a limited edition. It will certainly come to India as well. In fact, we are told that the bigger scramblers may or may not come to India, but the smaller scramblers are likely to continue doing duty in the Indian market as well. And knowing that they have open bookings for the bigger scramblers, the Steve McQueen edition with 6 units allocated for India, I'm guessing even the Sandstorm could make it to the Indian market in limited quantities, of course, because it is a globally limited model. Moving on, we also have news from the Bajaj stable. The NS 125 has been launched. It sits next to the Pulsar 125, of course, and it looks exactly similar to the NS. What you see on the screen is the Pulsar 125. Unfortunately, we don't have images of the NS 125, but the NS looks different, of course. It's got a slightly sharper, leaner, and more compact design. and it gets a 125cc engine which puts out 12 PS of power and 11 Newton meters of torque, mated to a 5-speed gearbox. And the bike has been launched at 93,690 rupees. In fact, I just made a mention to the Hero Honda Charisma a little while back while we were talking about the Trident, and I remember I paid lesser money for a Charisma when I bought it about 15 years ago, or a little more than that. And today you have a 125 at 93,000 rupees ex-showroom, so you're going to be paying close to a lakh for a 125. But the NS125 is a perfectly nice product. If you don't want to go with a 150 or a 200 and you want to start off with a 125, I think it's a very nice power commuter in that sense, relatively power compared to the 100, 110cc options out there. So that's essentially the motorcycle news. We also have some bit of news from Ola because, like I said, the Ola Electric scooter is on the horizon, and it always keeps coming back into news almost every week. But the big news this week is that Ola is looking at setting up a hypercharger network. And they are looking at doing that in the next 5 years. They are investing close to $2 billion in this particular project, and they'll set up 1 lakh charging points in the next 5 years. And just the way Bert mentioned about the new Audi A6 e-tron, you're talking about short charging times with these superchargers, and that's something similar that Ola is also looking at. Where you don't have to spend too much time charging the vehicle if your commutes are going to be longer. Now, are you going to use an electric scooter for long distance commuting? I'm not sure. Only time will tell. But yeah, I mean, this is a right step in the right direction. Just the way someone asked us earlier in today's show, why is everyone waiting for the government to set up the infrastructure? The manufacturers should take the initiative, and here's Ola doing exactly that. So we'll try and get you more information on the scooter as time progresses. We are in talks with Ola to try and get a closer look at this scooter that is being planned for the Indian market. So if that materializes, depending on how things are going right now, I don't know when and how that will happen. But if that materializes, we'll try and get you a closer look at what to expect from this Ola electric scooter. But that essentially wraps up the two-wheeler news for the week. But do we have any questions regarding the two-wheelers? But you're on mute. Bert, you're on mute.
I'm mute, sorry. Okay. Now, producer, back end. She's not used to handling the back end today, so she's kept you mute. But coming back, we've got something that I missed out on entirely, and that is the new Ferrari 812 Superfast Special Edition, which is unnamed as yet. They've not named this car. They will be naming this car very, very soon. It's just a few days away. But you can take a guess and try and figure out what you think they would call this car. But this is going to be one or other the most powerful V12 that Ferrari has developed in any of their cars to date. Ferrari says that power has been increased by about 30 PS to about 830 PS. So that makes it the most powerful production engine they've ever produced. It's also very, very quick. It is expected to do a time 0 to 100 under 2.9 seconds. I'm expecting to see this about 2.7 or 2.6 seconds. So they're going to shave off 2/10 of what the 812 Superfast can do, which is 2.9 seconds. But 2.6, 2.7 is where I see this car hitting that mark. But overall, let's talk about what else this car has got. The engine now, Ferrari's raised the rev limiter by about 600 revs to 9,500 RPM, which also makes it the highest revving Ferrari ever, quickest revving ever as well. And they've also cut down the weight. They've cut down the 1630 curb weight figure on the 812. Well, that has been reduced as well. So it's going to be lighter, it's going to be more agile, it's got a lot more features coming in. There's some very interesting stuff, slip control, rear wheel steer. It's going to be an amazing car. Ferrari lovers out there, and those of you can of course afford to buy a Ferrari, well, go ahead, check it out. I think this should be one of the very, very exciting new cars coming out from Ferrari in this year. I'm not sure if we will be able to get our hands on it as of yet, but rest assured, I'm making every attempt to see what happens in this direction. We will have a lot more information coming to you on the 812 Superfast. It says there the world premieres on the May 5th, so we'll know exactly what it's called. They've got a special moniker for it as well, so we'll know what that is. But May 5th, that's when we're going to have a lot more information about this all new car coming out from Ferrari. So there you go. That's the Ferrari bit that I missed out. And taking a few more queries. So do we have anything more for today? I'm just taking a quick look. Um, but there was one question that I wanted to take earlier, and I will take this time. Just looking for it. It's gone somewhere up in. Yeah, this one comes from Parag Adkar. If I may ask, as Indian manufacturers, can we also concentrate on tier 2 and below cities, as in rural areas? Fuel reachability is still challenging. Parag, just to answer your query, I'm sure every attempt will be made to electrify or rather to make sure in an EV environment, almost every city, town, village is looked at very thoroughly, and that every facility that has to be provided will be provided to you. Keep in mind, this shift to EVs is not a small shift. It involves every single owner, potential owner across the globe. So every solution that has to be provided will be dealt with. And there is so yes, tier two, whether it's tier two, tier three, rural towns and areas, they will all be taken care of. There will be an EV infrastructure charging infrastructure put into place. This will be made available. If not, there will be other solutions as well that will be available. And just keep in mind, it will be still simpler also in terms of having to develop or put charging stations. You can do it at your own village, in your own home, in your own towns. Fairly simpler than having to, set up a petrol station, a fuel station at this point in time. So in that sense, the infrastructure setup is a little simpler, but yes, there are a few challenges that it needs, and one of them, of course, is seamless power supply. That's one of the biggest challenges that we're facing as a nation today. We need seamless power supply across the nation, even to date. Can correct me if I'm wrong, Rohit, but there is still load shedding that keeps happening in Pune as well. If I'm not mistaken, Wednesday or Thursdays, there isn't power for what, half the day?
Yes, that's true. I mean, some areas, Thursdays, it's still at least 4 to 5 hours of load shedding does happen in a few areas, and yeah, it's still happening.
Yeah. So I guess power supply or other delivery of power is going to be the bigger challenge over here, and making sure that every nook and corner of this country has electric supply and that it can take care of the EV infrastructure that will come up in some time. Uh, Rahul Samel has a very interesting observation. M&M being the largest, of course, the question that I've already asked, but M&M being the largest manufacturer of tractors, any plans for EV tractors as electricity for farming is subsidized? Rahul, if you watch the interview, Rajesh has answered that they're definitely looking at something or other in the farm sector as well. Do you see India, from Nitin Joshua again, do you see India becoming a major EV export hub? Well, Josh, this is, I think, a very important question, and probably something that we should have seen earlier because we could have put this question forward to Mahindra. One of the reasons why we are a fairly large export hub for a lot of manufacturers today is because of our low cost of production. We're able to produce cars at very cheap rates, and then, of course, export them to other countries. And this is a fairly good and viable business model. But where EVs are concerned, there are a lot of elements that we need to import, and I'm not sure just how much more effective will the cost of production be where EVs are concerned. Will it really make sense to kind of export those products? Again, all of these are future developments. We don't know how the business model will work out for manufacturers. We have to wait and see. Keep in mind, a lot of EV elements are, or rather, they come in from China, from Taiwan, from various other countries in the Asian market, and certain other products coming from Europe as well. So we're still dependent on importing a few of those. Then, of course, assembly happens over here, manufacturing will happen here, and then these will go out. But we are still dependent for very critical components in an EV. We're still dependent on imports, and that may not entirely be it may not be the game changer for India as an export hub. Right. Guys, up next, right, we're going to announce our winners for today's show. And they aren't too many, to be honest, but there are definitely a couple of questions that we had received. And I'll just tell you what those are. Give me a second, please, guys, to just go through those. Again, lots of queries that are coming. we're going to have to correct this. Congratulations, top 5 winners. We are not getting as many questions, as many interesting queries, and not every week. Last week also we had just one winner, and this week again we've got few winners, fewer than five rather. One of course is Subhanshu 2008, who asked a query about to Mahindra if there were any plans for an electric tractor. I think fairly interesting because that's a space that not too many have got a solution for, and Mahindra definitely is looking at that. That is a very good question. The other query that I've got that I think we should pick out, I'm just looking for those from what we had asked today. Uh, go where they go. There's been quite a few queries, and one of them was right. Here you go. The two questions actually. Why doesn't India speed up in the electric car ecosystem? That's another very pertinent question. Country definitely needs to speed up its speed up building its charging infrastructure, and then of course getting the products out faster and faster. If we want to move to an EV ecosystem, so yes, again very pertinent question. And the next question again, electric is the future. At the same time, for a country like us, petrol is one of the main revenues. How is this going to be balanced out for the auto industry? Again, a very important question. So I think these are three of the top queries that we had today. Apart from this, I'm just going through our list of queries to see if there were anything else. Well, I guess those three are the top questions for today, guys. And we're going to keep asking you to send in your queries, and we'll keep taking those and seeing what we can do. Now, winners, Sony's put up those three winners. That's Subhanshu 2008, AJS Akash, and Shri KY01. You've got a free subscription to the Overdrive Digital Magazine. It's an annual subscription. It will start from the next issue, which in this case will be the May 2021 issue. So you will start getting that in your mailbox. So keep an eye for that. In the meantime, also do please drop us an email, guys, at digitalshow@overdrive.co.in so that we can streamline this process and make sure those subscriptions reach you in time. All right. Before we sign out today, let me just draw your attention to tomorrow's show on CNBC TV 18, where you can catch the Trident 660 review. That's what you just some of you have seen it over here, and those of you who missed out can definitely head to CNBC TV 18 again tomorrow. In addition, we've also got the facelifted Datsun Ready Go road test, a complete road test with the Ready Go, and we've got highlights from the Shanghai Motor Show as well. So tomorrow, Overdrive at 1 p.m. Sunday at 12:30 p.m. and 8 p.m. on CNBC TV 18. Also, do watch out, keep an eye out for CNBC TV 18 live TV as well. We've got the show that streams live there. You can also continue to watch us on Facebook, follow us on Facebook, on Overdrive, at ODMag, Twitter at ODMag, and of course, stay tuned to our Instagram channel. We have a lot more updates coming your way. Again, last and parting message from me and the guys at Overdrive. To all of you out there, stay safe, maintain social distances, keep sanitizing yourself, and try and reduce contact with people around. Just let's brave this and let's get over this COVID storm. We are in a terrible situation right now, and the fewer of us moving out and around, going out and about, the fewer chances of us catching the virus. So do stay safe, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye for now.